Welcome back to another episode of the Downsizing Roadmap podcast with your hosts, Jody Rosko and Heather Fisher. We're talking about all things downsizing, from our own experiences with clients to guest experts. Let's make downsizing easier, one conversation at a time.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Downsizing Roadmap podcast. We are going to talk today about financial planning for seniors, everything that goes along with perhaps a downsizing move, perhaps retirement, all of those key pieces, and we're really excited. I'm Heather Fisher.
I'm Jody Rosko.
And we have a guest with us today. We have Beth Beebe. She's with Craig Capital Wealth Management, Raymond James, and we're so excited, Beth, that you joined us to answer some of these key questions.
Yeah, I'm super excited to join you ladies and very appreciative of the opportunity. I think a lot of what we do lines up for sure. Before we dive in, I do want to mention that while I am a financial advisor, everything I'm sharing today is meant to be general education, not specific financial advice. So everyone's situation is different and unique. If you do need help with any of these topics, obviously we are here to help. So we just need to figure out a tailored plan for you.
Yes. So this is just general conversation. Everybody does have very specific things, but I do feel like people have a lot of financial questions up front, and so I think it's a great topic to have people talk about or listen to today.
I think the most that people will get from this is what questions should I be asking of, my team of people, or reaching out to Beth to get specific answers. And we'll talk a lot today about just those topics that you need to not skip over when you're making these decisions, and some general information on them. So how would someone begin preparing financially before they think about downsizing their home?
So I think there are many things to do, honestly. And I think you hit on one just now by talking about the team of people that you can put together to help you with these topics. So just like when you're getting ready to plan to move, you're going to contact a real estate agent. That's kind of your natural, first approach. The second thing, talk to your financial advisor. You also want to have a tax professional in your back pocket. An attorney potentially could be one of those people as well. And all of those people can come together to help you do whatever it is you're planning to do. And it's always great to have, professionals in each wheelhouse to give you tips and, make you aware of things that could come up.
Yeah.
Too.
How'd you get started?
So I got started in the industry because we are a second generation financial firm. So we are with Raymond James. We are an independent branch of our broker-dealer, and we are located in Mason, Ohio. My partner is my father, David Craig, and we have been in the area for about 24 years. So he has a wealth of knowledge. We have a great team with Raymond James, and super happy to partner with them. So really any kind of situation that comes up, we have people in place to help.
I love that.
Yeah, we love your dad. We see him when we stop by to see you, and we love that second generation. And I think, just like all of us, you're in that generation where we're all dealing with our kids and our parents and all of that, and you have such a unique perspective in your brokerage with both of you working together. We love that.
Well, and it's been amazing because, a lot of these topics I didn't think about before joining our team. I was in education before this, so I was a teacher for about 13 years. And while I saw it down the pipeline, you're young, you're not paying as much attention. But now that I'm faced with it with clients on a day-to-day basis, having a plan is the best thing you could possibly do. It alleviates stress. It gives you a roadmap.
Yes, exactly. A downsizing roadmap.
Yeah, exactly. And it really is helpful.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm sure you heard about all of that as you were growing up, since that was your dad's business. I'm sure that it's just in you to know so much about it. And so you can use that as well, just all of the stories that he's had over the years of all of the people. I think that's what really gets to us, our own personal stories, and then the stories of the people that we help. It's like, okay, this is why you have to do these things.
Well,
Please do
exactly.
them. Please don't end up like some of the people that we've had, right? Like, we want to make sure that everybody's talking to a financial planner early, and getting their plan set in place so that they are ready whenever that is.
Well, and I think you're right, too. We all have a story and history with money and finance.
For sure.
And there are reasons we feel the way we feel about certain topics with that as well. You know, as we were talking about doing this podcast, it made me think of my great-grandmother, Nan, who she had everything planned as to what she was doing. She had really created a legacy for her family and her, you know, heirs and all of that. But even with the downsizing process, there were things that she did that I think, oh, that's kind of a great way to do it. You know?
Like what'd she do?
So
Give us
one
a
of the
couple
things
examples.
that she did, she ended up, she lived independently for a very long time, and then kind of the normal sort of things started happening. I think she broke her hip, had to go into assisted living shortly after. But before she did that, so one thing she loved to do with her grandkids was travel with them. And she did that because her husband didn't love to travel. So she had a workworkaround. She was a smart lady. And
Find
she would
some new
take
travel partners.
Exactly. She would take one of the kids with her. So then he didn't have a problem with it. But they traveled extensively. So things that she would pick up from those travels, she would go back through and write a note and put it inside or underneath or wherever on
Love
that
it.
item to say who it was going to and why. So whether it was my dad, it would say David. We went to, you know, I don't know, Tanzania. They went to crazy places.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, this is going to him. And she put a note literally on most of her items.
That's amazing.
Virtually everything of where she wanted it to go.
We
That's
talk
such a
about that
gift.
so frequently about the stuff is just stuff unless it has the story and someone knows the story, then it's the memory and wanted and appreciated. So I
Yeah.
love that.
Well, and it lets your people or your heirs go back through those stories too, you know, and he remembers a lot of things because she did those sorts of things
Right.
for her family.
Yeah, I love that. What would you say are some mistakes that people who aren't as smart as Nan make? And, you know, financially, you know, we always would want people to start very early because time is on your side for that always. But if someone, you know, hasn't quite gotten all their plans together, what should they start with and when in life?
So I think the first thing is it's never too late. So even if you haven't started planning, you can always get there. You know, whether it's listening to this podcast and thinking, oh, you know, I haven't done that. You know, go ahead and get started. Think about where you want to be in 10 years. I haven't done that. You know, and thinking, oh, you know, I haven't. Think about where you want to be. Go ahead and get started. I haven't done that. You know, and thinking, oh, you know, think about where you want to be. None of those thought processes need to even be outlandish. It's just sort of what kind of lifestyle do you want? One of the activities that we do with clients is we think about who are you going to have an ice cream cone with in that time period, you know, and how are you going to facilitate that? Do you even want to have an ice cream cone with somebody? Maybe, maybe you don't want to end up in, you know, some sort of large
Group.
yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like those kind of the villages in Florida, or maybe you do.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so some of those easy kind of things to think about, it's an easy way to start it of, okay, what are my plans? How am I going to get there? You know, you need to look at your financial situation as a whole as well.
Yeah.
What funds do you have to support the lifestyle that you want to have? Maybe you're already there, and like we talked about, you're the sandwich generation and you're dealing with your parents. Maybe that gives you some insight on, okay, mine didn't plan well enough. Maybe I need to look into long-term care for myself because I may not want my kids to have to do some of the things that I'm having to do right now because it's sad and it's hard. It's a very hard phase for people to go through with their
Yeah.
parents.
Yeah.
I think
Yes.
personally, you know, but I think we see other people like this, but with my parents, you know, they very much did a very traditional path of just working and putting things more in, you know, some investments, but more just savings. Like you work hard, you save your money, and it's just, you know, a difficult situation when that's not enough. You know, in this day and age when the costs are expensive for care and things cost so much. And so I think we find a lot of people that just, you know, we want them to find people to give advice like you are, because it is possible to change at any point and start having your money work better for you to get, a different lifestyle than you want. But I think there's a lot of people that thought just working hard at their career and saving would be enough, and it's just not.
Yeah. And we see that a lot too. I've seen that in my own family. My grandfather on the other side, he actually did do enough. He was able to, pay for his own care, but it was all out of pocket. And that was another thing. A good person to bring in sometimes could be a senior advisor who will meet with you. They'll meet with your clients and talk to you about the best types of facilities that are available, and they know them in and out.
Yeah.
But in that situation, they even gave us insight on, VA benefits because he had been in the Korean War.
Yeah.
So he was able to get some, funding for that too, which was helpful. But I totally agree with you on that side of things. It wasn't necessarily, I'm going to put this here and I'm going to invest this here. He did well for what he knew.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what we see too. And it's just, it wasn't talked about, finances and money. So,
well, and I think a question that we get a lot is, how do I know if I'm going to have enough? Right? And so that's very specific to them.
And I think the best advice maybe to give in that situation is to have them reach out to a financial advisor, truly, because we can look at their entire, financial snapshot.
Yeah.
We'll do a complimentary, and just get that relationship going. Or if you have a financial advisor, reach out to that person and go over everything and say, these are the things that I'm concerned about for the future, because that truly is what we're here for. We go through this all of the time with people, who have saved at their 401k. Maybe they have tax efficiency issues that they're concerned about.
Yeah.
Those sorts of things, especially in real estate. I mean, there's so many investment strategies to look at.
Absolutely.
Right. And then they're changing from trying to, build it to like protection, asset protection, right?
And distribution.
And so it's a different thought process. So even if you've had somebody who's been working with you, you have a different plan now. Like you have a different
and that person
purpose.
Needs to know that plan and purpose.
And what the timing of that is, right?
Absolutely.
So if you're like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this in a couple years or 5 years or 10 years, really, honestly, you need to know that as a financial planner. You need to know all 100%. Of that.
100%. Oh, yeah. Your time horizon is huge in planning, for us to look at that and to consider it. You want to make sure another maybe financial mistake is to not look at and evaluate your liquidity needs closely enough. You want to make sure to keep an emergency fund. But you also want to make sure that if you have proceeds from the sale, that you're utilizing that money to work for you for the future, because it could also help your future, life plan.
Right. So what you're saying is, don't take all the money from the sale of your house and put it in your checking account.
Yes, ma'am.
And let it sit there.
Exactly.
You're saying, like, how much might you need in the next certain amount of time?
Right.
And then how can we
use the rest to multiply and grow in the most productive way?
Absolutely. And the market changes so much all the time. Interest rates right now are decent, and it's fixed income has some good rates to handle some of those things for you with less risk. So
I think, and that's the other thing that, like you said, you're up on all of that stuff and how that's going, but leaving it in your checking account or savings account is actually losing you money, right? Because if it's just, you're probably not even keeping up with inflation. So sometimes I think there's a mentality of like, I want it to be safe in this safe place.
Absolutely. So the backyard instead is what you're saying.
I'm suitcase under the bed.
Hey, we deal with clients that have that mentality too.
Right.
But we crack up together.
And so it's a mindset of like, what can, how much will make you feel safe in your nest egg that you're kind of keeping for your day-to-day stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then what can we do with the rest to make sure that it's growing so that it will take care of us later.
Right. And then that's where you get into that distribution phase that you talked about earlier, is we look at that and we determine, well, how much can we pool, and those sorts of things to fund that lifestyle.
Without taking away from the main as much as possible.
Correct.
Yeah.
So lots of different pieces to this puzzle.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
right.
but
Too many for me. That's why you're the smart one.
It's so much fun to me. It's just like fun to strategize and to figure out how can we get to where we need to get. And, you know, right now, we know the market has been volatile. Working with somebody who's proactive, I think, is important too. I've spent the last 3 weeks on the phone, you know, kind of guiding people through this and talking to people and reaching out. So that's another piece is if you're not happy and want proactivity, find the people that will do that with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's lots out there too.
Well,
you know?
and I think the market too, you can put your 2 cents in worth, but like over the long haul, it's going to be okay. It's scary at certain times.
It is. And unfortunately, there are people who are experiencing the scary times at the least ideal time for them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know, going into retirement and making these plans. So you really want to look for somebody who can strategize for that too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I love that. And we advocate every episode, everyone we talk to. When you have that strategy and that plan, the bumps that will come with any of the pieces, you can get through them. And, you know, plan A, plan B, much easier than blinders on and hope it all works out.
I know people say it all the time, but you really don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So true.
I hate to overuse the phrase, but it's just
so true.
Yeah.
I think that's one of my favorite part about this whole journey that we've been on with the whole downsizing roadmap is meeting so many people like you and like the people who we have people who will help seniors find the right place.
Mm-hmm.
They're brilliant. I mean, we've had estate sale people. We've had estate lawyers. Like, just everybody is so smart in their own ways. And I just love talking to all of you about it and figuring out how all those pieces of the puzzle, when you put all those people together, how much easier they can make your life.
Well, and I told you, I loved that episode. I listened to that, you know, over the weekend, and she gave great tips, some information that I thought, oh.
Yeah, she's talking about the episode about when the title company came, Ann Taylor from M&M Title came.
Yeah.
So if you haven't listened to that episode, go listen to it. There is some really great information there as well.
Power of attorneys and your deed and just making sure those
Transfer on death.
Yeah, all of those are in line for your estate to transfer easily and to avoid scams. It was a great episode, so thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, but you're right. You don't know what you don't know, and there's so much I didn't know when I was dealing with my mom, and it would have been so much nicer if I'd had some of these people to help me.
It's so stressful,
Yeah.
and it's you know, there's a lot of feelings involved with that when you're dealing with your parents. Yeah.
How much, you know, going back to sandwich generation and adult kids being in the picture and seniors and, you know, those at the cusp of moving from one to the other and all of that, how much of a total family picture or how much involvement do you see people wanting or do you suggest? Or is it just...
So what I see versus what I suggest would be
tell us both.
Yeah.
So, and I've seen it around the gambit, honestly. I have one client who she has her children very involved. One of them is the POA. One is healthcare, power of attorney, instead one's financial. And that seems to work for them. Now, I don't know. Every family is different, you know. But that was helpful because there was a downsizing situation. They had to go through all of the things, you know, get rid of, pitch, keep, whatever. And it seems that it's been helpful to have somebody have financial power of attorney because this is a memory situation too, where she does not have the memory that she once had. So now, even as her advisor, I can call and check in with her son and say, hey, just to let you know, this is our thoughts on this, you know. But I still call mom too, and check in and talk about how she's loving her place that she's in, and you know, all of that. So it's really worked out for them, which is a great, you know, story. And most of the time, we see it work out when you have a plan. Yeah. Even in the worst kind of case scenarios, I have another client who they've been clients for a very long time. Her husband ended up having memory issues, dementia, had a stroke, and was really pretty incapacitated from that. They ended up in, you know, assisted care, and she we had such a good plan in place. She also has a son who's dealing with things for her too, which made it helpful as well. But had she not she kind of waited a while too for the plan, so it was a little bit more stressful there, because then she ended up having a stroke too.
Oh,
so
gosh.
then you thankfully hers wasn't as bad, but you still have kind of those last minute prepping that came on kind of fast. Yeah.
Crisis prepping.
So
Yes.
we talk so much about just being ready. Just be ready. It doesn't have to happen right now, but everybody should have a financial power of attorney and a healthcare power of attorney. Like everybody should just have that healthcare for sure, because things happen. You're fine until you aren't, right?
Exactly.
And then when you aren't, and if you get that, diagnosis of dementia, it's much harder to get that power of attorney.
Oh, absolutely.
After.
That's true too. Yeah,
After.
from what I understand.
Yes, and so so just be ready. Like be ready for those unexpected things, and hope that never happens. But
And
I think that takes the stress off of you. I think people, like you said earlier, we've had a lot of conversations about money and how it shows up in people's lives based on their childhood, based on all kinds of things. And a lot of people are afraid to talk about money.
Absolutely.
And so, but that planning is the part that takes that fear away. And they're afraid to make the plan, but then the only way to get that real fear of the money away is to have the plan about it and know what's going to happen. Because I think, you either have an abundant mindset about money or you have a scarcity mindset about money. Yeah. And if you have a scarcity mindset about money and you don't have a plan, then you're just always in this turmoil of like, what's going to happen next, and what about this, and what about this, but I'm afraid to go find out. And it's a terrible place to live in your brain.
And I think the earlier you can have those conversations, maybe the better too, especially with your parents, that are aging, because there's less, I don't want to say animosity, but maybe negativity too, or just the feeling that the switch of parent-child relationship.
Oh, yeah.
Dynamic,
My mom did not want me to take any part of that. Like,
Right.
that was not.
And sometimes, and maybe not in every situation, but if you could have those conversations earlier to where it feels more like sharing your family history, that could be beneficial.
Right.
Typically in February, I do a client education on the family love letter, where you can write out exactly where you want your things to go. You can write out where everything is and have it on one sheet, and also even talk about your values.
Yeah.
What's important to you as an adult right now that your kids could be interested in and want to
That's
know
awesome.
about you.
Yeah, I love that.
I love that too. Yeah. I think that, those conversations are just hard for some families to have, or they just never have. So it seems like a taboo subject. And, then I know Jody and I go and have adulting classes with our young daughters and our kids. Like, okay, here's all the things that no one told us. And,
And I think that's a generational change too.
Yeah.
I do feel like people are getting more comfortable, probably
Yeah.
because there's more education about it, and just, people are talking about it.
Yeah,
more.
I mean, my parents didn't talk a lot about money with me, and because their parents didn't talk with them, like
Exactly.
ever.
Yeah.
I don't think. I
And
don't
I grew
think
up
that
in
was
a
a
different
conversation.
situation, whereas my dad's a financial advisor.
Right, so you
we
talked about money all the
this
time. My kids know everything about houses.
Exactly. Well, and like you said, you're going through things with your kids to let them know. I will say my mom's not a financial advisor. She was a nurse, and which also leads to this next comment. She created a binder for me that the title of it is "What to Do When I Die." Right on the
Perfect.
front. And she,
Yes.
it's about this thick, and it literally lists everything. It's got her, will, her POAs, all of that stuff.
We
Every
advocate for
account
that.
she has.
We at every class we give, we say that people need to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's the biggest gift ever. That you're already sad, and you just want to do what
Yes.
they want and what they would have wanted and what's right for them. And so having them tell you that through paperwork or whatever and is amazing. I would have loved that.
Yeah, and I think you just nailed it. I mean, that's exactly how I feel about it too.
Yeah.
It's like just lifted stress
Yes.
already.
Yeah.
Of things you don't necessarily have to think about.
Yeah, so many things that aren't necessarily the big picture, here's, my bank account number, but simple things that I know were hurdles when Jody went through things with her mom, like passwords to things and funeral arrangements for, when someone passes and all of those things, having it in one spot. We're big advocates for, filling out a binder of some sort and just making it easy whether it's someone passes or just a crisis. I know there was one time a couple years ago when my dad was in the hospital for something, and my siblings and I and my mom were dealing with that, and then I left to go home and got a phone call that my mom was in the hospital. The same, went in, and so had both parents in the hospital and they were both home in a couple of days. It was, it didn't end up being something catastrophic, but it's like, oh gosh, wait, mom knows everything, and she can't be not available too. So
absolutely,
just that availability of information.
And I know you guys may have touched on this in previous episodes too, but just to reiterate, your beneficiaries, that's something easy and simple, no matter really your asset size or anything like that, but make sure to update them.
And you're talking like account by account, investment accounts and bank accounts?
Bank accounts, investment accounts, and that even goes to insurance. I mean, make sure you're getting a review of your insurance. I would say yearly, to make sure that you're covered for what you feel you need.
Yeah.
Whether that's term insurance, all the different types of insurance can fall under that. But definitely make sure that those are up to date. Things like TOD on your accounts, transfer on death. Most institutions are doing that kind of automatically now, but just double check that it is too.
Is that different than the beneficiary, or that's the same?
No,
just
it's
two
different than
terms?
the beneficiary. It helps with probate and kind of skipping that piece for people with the transfer on death. So, and any questions like that, speaking with an attorney is a great option to kind of get their insight on how should I have my account set up.
Yeah.
Do I need a trust? Those sorts of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you speak with your financial advisor, I give referrals for those types of situations all the time too. So if you have a need, talk to them.
Yeah.
They're happy to help you do that too.
I think that's our circle, right? We just have like all of us like around. So like, wait, now I know who you need to talk to.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Because it's true. Like everybody has that specialization. And so you do need more than one person to talk to you about it.
Absolutely.
To help you with it.
And you know your client, you know what kind of personality they'll fit with somebody else, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of something to think about too.
Well, I think we think about it more on like healthcare side, like, you go to one doctor and then you go to another doctor for a different specialty, and you hope that they're asking, what prescriptions are you, that whole thing is talked about in healthcare. But I think if you're not establishing your financial people as a team, meaning they all know the names of each other, or you facilitated conversations, or in whatever way it's connected people that already work together and refer, you can have your financial pieces fighting against each other, or at least not working together all for one plan.
So, a great analogy.
Yeah. And because you hear it talked about on the healthcare side, well, I didn't know that that you were on this drug from that doctor and this and all of that, but it's the same. And your financial pieces, just talk to all of them either together if that works, or at least let them know what you have done
or
with a different one, or introduce them. Absolutely. And let everybody work. That team word is the most important word that we've said.
And I think a lot of times, at least in my experience, when I do get the introduction to a tax professional, it's almost another relief for the client of, I don't have to try to get this information that she gave me over to this information that he needs, so that can take the middleman out of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we all work really well together. We play nicely in the
and
sandbox.
You guys are the smart ones on these topics.
Oh my goodness. So it's what we study though too.
Right.
I mean, we are licensed and getting constant education on this all the time. So, and I always tell my clients, if I don't know the answer, I'll find it for you.
Yeah.
I'm super good at research.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what, personally, want on my side is someone that knows the questions to ask the other professional on my team and knows that it's all being handled, because I am not savvy on that and don't want to be. So, yeah.
Well, and if you've never dealt in a situation, a lot of times we deal with, things with charitable contributions too. That's not necessarily in everybody's wheelhouse. It's not something that comes up all the time, but it's something that can be talked about and utilized for people in certain situations as well. So, there's just like we said earlier, there's so much to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we don't know what we don't know. We keep saying that, right? I love what we're talking about, though, is all the same stuff that we're talking about in our downsizing roadmap, 5 steps, right? Number 1 is getting dreamy about your future, right? And we tell them to do that about their house and what they're going to look like and what that future is going to look like, because we don't do that enough. But that's also what you need to do so that you can talk to your financial planner about what's next and what you
what's
actually
that dream going to
yeah,
cost?
What's that dream going to? Yeah. How are we funding this dream that I now have?
But I don't think it's bad to get dreamy on your finances either.
Yeah.
Those are some of the best relationships we have, of people who just get nitty gritty and granular about what it is they want.
Yeah.
And that helps us so much on our side of planning too.
Yeah, I love that.
Well, and I do think the more clear you are on what your vision is of what you want your life to look like, then that can be your house, it can be travel, it can be your financial stuff, it can be all of that. Like, you know what you want it to look like, then you can make that happen.
And it doesn't mean that life's not going to, come up and
Kick
smack you in the face either. And you have to adjust those plans, but take the opportunities and adjustments to look at the plan again.
Yeah.
When something happens, that's typically when people are forced to look at the plan or to reach out for help, whether it's becoming, widowed, or a divorce that you didn't anticipate.
Or an injury.
Or anything like that. That's, again, another time to look at your, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it can be scary when you think about it in those terms, but I think thinking about it and planning for it, it's better than the alternative.
Well, that's the thing. I think that's just like in all of it, the fear comes from the unknown. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you just live in that fear instead of just going to find out the answer because you're afraid of the answer or whatever that looks like. But
avoidance theory,
yeah.
Right?
I mean, I have avoided topics in my life and all of that. But what I have almost, I can't think of a time where I didn't discover that when I finally went to the right person and asked for help with the solution, that the solution was so much easier than I had built it up in my head with the fear and the unknown. And if I would have done it way earlier, probably could have addressed it. I mean, we talk about that even with like walking through someone's home and a spot on the wall that you never repaired, and I just have been living with that for 10 years because that seems so overwhelming. And we're like, well, the contractor could fix that in an hour for $100. And they're like, wait, what?
Sometimes I feel that way about the items in my basement.
Yeah.
Right? Like, why didn't I get rid of this 4 bags of clothes, of my kids that haven't worn it in a year?
Yeah. And so I think all of us walk around on various times and topics with that anxiety of the unknown, but it's almost always easier and solvable and better if you just handle it and get the information.
I think that should be just our new mantra, is just handle it.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Handle it.
Because
T-shirts.
like we were talking about stuff, like there'll be a pile of stuff and you walk by it for like 3 years or something, and then you go clean it up and it took you like 20 minutes.
Right.
And it's been irritating.
I handled it last week and I feel so much better. I passed it off to a great friend who sent me the outfit that her son wore for Easter and was like, look, these are BB's clothes. I was like, oh.
Yes, so perfect.
And they're being used.
And they're so nice. Like, and some of this, they were one time.
Right.
Don't get me started.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
So if you're out there and you're just feeling anxious about not knowing if you have enough or not knowing if your plan, your dream is possible, I think most importantly, we're saying go talk to someone, whether that's reaching out to Beth, and we'll get you all of her information before we're done here, but that's reaching out, or if you have someone, just making sure you're doing those check-ins and voicing what your dream is and
what your concerns are.
What your concerns are and how can I get there. And, that plan there's always a way, or, a way to find the best path for your situation.
Mm-hmm. And it's not a one and done. Like, it is something you need to look at yearly at the minimum, right?
I would say, yeah.
At minimum. Because people will make a plan and then just let it ride and like kind of not deal with it again.
Right. Or they may not think to do it and
Yeah.
just think, oh, well, I bought this insurance,
Right.
5 years ago. Still probably good to look at because your situation could have changed, any of that. Like we said, beneficiaries is the minimum,
Yeah.
but your
At
overall
least once a year,
situation,
make
too.
sure that all that paperwork is put together in your
Yep.
book on when you die. And, but
It doesn't have to be
seriously,
fancy either, guys. It could be a binder.
Yeah, and once it's done, it's not just done. You have to go back and look at that. And if you have financial questions, you ask your financial person. If you have questions about your estate, you get an estate attorney. All of those things, you just have to kind of continue to look at it. 'Cause
Absolutely.
when my mom passed away, I didn't even think about it for a year, but she was who the kids were to go to, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just, that's not what's on your mind, so you just have to get in your habit of like looking at that
Right.
every
And
year.
that's a huge topic to think about, what's my alternative going to be and those sorts of things
Yeah.
too. So the whole, you open that can of worms.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's good to do. I mean, you need to figure it out. And like you said, it alleviates a lot of anxiety and stress.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the alternative to not doing it is the crisis arises and it's harder and you're
Or
not
you can't
ready.
even make the decisions yourself.
You can't
Your family
make the
has to.
decisions. So,
Right.
You do all of this prep work, all of the planning and prep and dreaming, and all of it takes some work, but it makes the load off your mind, and when something happens, you are ready for it.
Well, and it's just like hope for the best, but plan for the worst,
Yeah.
honestly. And we do that all the time.
Yeah.
Because you do want to hope that life is easy and,
Yeah.
and things are going to go smoothly, but so often it ends up not being that way because life is going to keep lifing.
Right. But if in the meantime all of that is off your shoulders,
Absolutely.
I think that is a freer way to like live in your brain.
And utilizing that team that you put together. I know you guys have a team of people that you enjoy working with. I can tell you in my line of work and in Jody and Heather, we network all the time. So if there is a need, reach out to any of us because we know a person.
Yes. Yes.
We
Well, tell us
absolutely-
your info. Tell us
Okay,
about how they would
so-
reach out to you.
You can reach out to me, and I have to read a disclosure to you all too at the end because I'm very compliance oriented.
We all have rules.
Yes,
Yes.
we are, and we're a fiduciary firm, but definitely heavy on compliance. So you can get a hold of me on www.craig-capital.com. I'm also on LinkedIn if you'd like to connect. Love that. And our address is 8485 Mason Montgomery Road, Suite 1, Mason, Ohio 45040. And here's for the disclosure. Securities offered through Raymond James Financial Services, Inc., member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services are offered through Raymond James Financial Services Advisors, Inc. Craig Capital Wealth Management is not a registered broker-dealer and is independent of Raymond James Financial Services.
Perfect.
Yes.
Beth
Wonderful.
Beebe.
Yes.
Check her out. She definitely can help you.
Yeah.
Right.
So, what is one action step someone should take this week if they wanted to start on this path? I would say
Call Beth.
call
me.
call Beth. Anything else? Just start that dreaming.
Honestly, I think meeting with your financial advisor or a new financial advisor, if you're so inclined, is probably the first step to look at your overall plan. And then, talking about the downsizing side, those are where you can really develop the ideas with somebody who's objectively looking at your situation too, and then the next step. So those conversations are what type of downsizing are you going to do? What's your plan for this? Are you an empty nester? Because that's a totally different conversation than somebody who's a senior that, maybe have health issues or things like that. And that person can really delve into the plan with you and the ideas that you have and guide you from there.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us
Thank
today,
you.
Beth.
Yes.
We loved having you, and we'll have you back for some more information. So
Love chatting with you guys, and you're doing a great service to people as
Oh.
well.
Thanks.
thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. If you need more resources, you can find those at our website, www.downsizingroadmap.com.
See you next
We will
time.
see you next time. Thanks for joining us on the Downsizing Roadmap podcast. If you found this episode helpful, be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone who might need a little downsizing inspiration. Have questions or ideas for future episodes? Visit us on our website, www.downsizingroadmap.com. Until next time, let's keep simplifying and moving forward.